Let's take a look at some charts on Doge from this week's article on Brave New Coin. So Doge is a proof of work network, meaning we can look at the hash rate and difficulty here. It is merge mined with Litecoin, which means you can mine it at the same time simultaneously. This activity looks super bullish because it's obviously increased dramatically since April. The question is how much of this represents a botnet, which has kind of taken over Doge apparently, called DOKI. Seeing this highly variable hash rate certainly doesn't look organic. It looks like someone's turning it on and off frequently. Large portions of it tends to be cloud mining or botnet mining. That's just how it looks usually. It's not smooth. It is dramatic, swift, but it is at a multi-month high. So it's hard to really evaluate this because you want to be bullish on an increase in hash rate from lows, but the cause is questionable and not lasting. If we look at the A64 Script, this profitability is probably based on Litecoin, not on Doge, but either way, if someone's mining Litecoin, they're going to be mining Doge. There's no reason not to. It is strictly better to mine both at the same time than one or the other. And there's been no new ASICs this year and none announced for 2020, 2021 that I can see. Not exactly bullish or bearish, but just something to keep in mind when you're seeing increases in hash rate kind of out of the blue, pointing towards even more so it's just some botnet, some computers being taken over essentially to mine LTC and Doge. If you look at the transaction count and average transaction size, again, this kind of echoes botnet activity. There's clearly a range of transactions per day here that exploded mid this year. This did increase with the TikTok bubble that it had to 40 sats, and it's kind of stayed up there. So it's hard to tease that apart between what's really going on here. Is this all like, did the botnet take over immediately after the TikTok thing happened, and then miraculously transactions are just still that high? Because they're basically at an all-time high, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And they're higher than many other coins higher in the market cap, Zcash, Bcash, Dash, maybe not Dash, but a lot of the coins higher on the list with less utility essentially was what I'm getting at. They have far fewer transactions. But again, a lot of this is botnet activity, so it's a give and a take here. And average transactions are just flat, essentially, over the past 2 years. If we look at NVT, an inverse metric of economic utility, and active addresses, you'd expect active addresses to be higher than they are, I think. I'd expect them to be past all-time highs if transactions are at all-time highs. So there's a bit of a weirdness there as well, which again may be botnet related. NVT has continued to fall over the past few months as active addresses and transactions have increased, so there's no surprises there. But again, the question is how much of that is organic? Is it just botnet mining? I don't think there's a large swath of people just using Doge as a transaction mechanism right now. It's probably botnet activity. If we look at MVRV, another one of these inverse metrics of on-chain activity, basically. So the lower it is, the more bullish it is. And in general, anything below 1 has been a good buying opportunity. And it's at about 102 or something like that. It's right above 1 right now. So based on on-chain activity, it's saying the market cap hasn't really priced in the on-chain activity, which is why you can read this as bullish. If you look at the GitHub commits, it certainly looks like a barren wasteland, but they are merged separately off of the main repo, if that makes sense. So the activity looks a lot lower than it actually is. They've released a bunch of updates over the past few years, so it's not a dead coin by any means from the dev perspective. And they have a soft fork coming up that's going to enable what sounds like some sort of time lock situation with transactions. I'm not completely sure, but it's almost completed here. How this works is the miners have to vote over so many blocks that they approve of the soft fork, and then it goes through, similar to SegWit. If you look at Google Trends, again, you see that price pop and TikTok shenanigans really pumped the Google Trends here. That has all fallen to the wayside, back to the previous range. If price begins to increase again, I expect Google Trends to increase with it very similarly. Looking at technicals, VPVR, yearly pivots, These are Bollinger Bands here and RSI on the weekly chart. So you can see the big level now is 40 sats. Lots of resistance there based on the mini pump that happened a couple weeks ago. We're at the median of the B-bands. The B-bands aren't as tight as they were leading into that pump. So the technicals for any sort of move here are minimal. Like this should just keep ranging forever at this point until a decision is made. So there's no trade here per se. Even RSIs are back in like the middle of the range. So there's no bias one way or the other here. There's no bias really on B-bands. What I say in the article is people are likely to buy lows just based on risk reward. So not for no other reason, no technical reason other than it's at a historical low or will potentially reach a low around 20 sats, something like that. But there's always the expectation, even though it hasn't happened in quite some time, that 100 sats is where any bullish move up will happen. If we look at the weekly cloud, it's also bearish. Prices below cloud. It really hasn't been above the cloud ever. So if this ever gets above the cloud, maybe 2022, maybe that's Doge's year. But as it stands now, there's no trade here on the long side, really. Obviously it's way below the cloud. Your best bet, again, is waiting for the cloud to flip bullish as everything zeroes out over the next 6 to 12 months. And then even looking at the daily cloud, you can see that it broke the 200, broke the cloud, and then immediately retraced back down below the 200, below the cloud. So that was your entry signal. It was quick, it was fleeting, it didn't last, as they usually are with Doge. It happens very swift, unforgiving, and lasts just about as long as it took to start. Historically, though, anything that finds a low and then blasts off does occur over a few weeks, at least pre-2019. That's what happened. Post-2019, any pop-up has been immediately smacked down. So it's hard to get bullish here, obviously in the near term, but something to watch for. Definitely that 40 sat level on VPVR, previous highs, and really anything above 33 sats is probably worth paying attention to. Anything above the previous support resist range with the 1 day expectation of 100 sats, but fundamentals look really good. From an on-chain perspective, the question is just how much of that represents botnet mining versus actual organic activity.